Alright, let's dive into this infamous slice of American history, the Penobscot Expedition, where a bunch of well-meaning American rebels tried to pull off a heroic naval assault, but instead ended up with the most comical defeat you could imagine. Buckle up, because we're about to witness how the dream of patriotic glory turned into a disastrous slapstick routine, complete with missed cues, bad decisions, and one unfortunate Commodore who couldn't make up his mind. So it's 1779 and the British decide to set up a vacation home in Maine. Picture this, red-coated soldiers and their officers probably having tea by Penobscot Bay and building a fort right there, because why not? But this wasn't just any fort though. This was Fort George, smack dab on the edge of a cliff overlooking the water, just daring someone to attack it. To the Americans, this was practically an invitation. Seeing this, the good folks of Massachusetts get all worked up. We can't let the British have a fort up there. They'll control the coast. We'll all be eating tea and crumpets by next Tuesday. So they come up with this grand plan to kick the British out. It was like an early version of Storm the Beach, only with boats that weren't exactly up to speed, commanders who barely knew each other, and soldiers who were wondering if anyone actually knew how to lead an attack. The Dream Team? More like questionable commanders assemble. Enter the dynamic duo, Commodore Dudley Saltonstall, the guy with a Navy badge but little clue how to use it, and General Solomon Lovell, a land commander who signed up to storm a fort but didn't know how to coordinate with a fleet. Think of them as the awkward buddies in a bad cop movie, where one's always saying, "We should wait," and the other's shouting, "No, we gotta attack now." So Lovell and Saltonstall gather a bunch of militia and volunteers, throw them on some ships, and set sail for Penobscot Bay. With 44 ships, they look impressive at first glance, like they might actually know what they're doing. But as you'll soon see, it's about to become a comedy of errors. They finally arrive at Penobscot Bay, ready for action. But what does Saltonstall, our Navy commander, decide to do? Attack? Nah. He decides to just sit there in the bay and think it over. Maybe we should just wait a bit, see if the British get scared and leave on their own. Spoiler alert, they don't. Lovell, watching this go down, is probably screaming on the inside, "We've got to attack now!" But no, Saltonstall's too busy playing it safe, so they just drift there. Meanwhile, the British are probably sitting up in Fort George, sipping their tea and enjoying the free entertainment. Days go by, and finally Lovell can't take it anymore. He's like, "Now, okay, we're going in." So the American soldiers start their assault, hiking up the cliffs toward the fort with full energy and high hopes. And just as they're about to make some real progress, they look over their shoulders for naval support, expecting to see Saltonstall's ships firing on the fort. But what do they see? Nothing! Saltonstall is still sitting back in the bay, probably second-guessing every life choice that led him here. So, without any cannon fire to help them out, the American soldiers get pounded by the British. They start scrambling back down the cliffs like kids running from a particularly angry goose, and morale just tanks. This assault was supposed to be their big moment, and instead they look like they're fleeing from a bad prank gone wrong. Just when the Americans think it can't get any worse, a British fleet led by Sir George Collier shows up. Imagine Saltonstall's face when he realizes he's about to be outnumbered and outgunned by a fleet that actually knows how to command a battle. Now, instead of finally attacking Fort George, Saltonstall's faced with a real decision: stand his ground and fight it, or run for his life. And let me tell you, he chooses the second option, but he's so indecisive about it that he doesn't even pull off a smooth retreat. Nope. This guy panics and the entire American fleet goes into a chaotic scramble. Ships are running aground, crashing into each other. It's like a naval version of bumper cars, only the stakes are much, much higher. At this point, it's every ship for itself. American sailors are trying to row away, swim to shore, or just generally not get blown out of the water. Some are diving into the woods, wondering how they got roped into this mess. And let's not forget the British, who are watching this whole thing with the kind of satisfaction usually reserved for a victory dance. Back on shore, Lovell and his soldiers are scrambling through the Maine wilderness, lost, hungry, and angry. They went from would-be heroes to disillusioned survivors in record time, all because of a plan that fell apart faster than a cheap musket. Meanwhile, Saltonstall sneaks back to safety, only to be court-martialed and booted out of the Navy. Probably not the honor he imagined. The Penobscot Expedition ends in total disaster. The Americans lose every single ship they brought. Soldiers are straggling home with tales they'd rather forget, and Saltonstall's reputation is officially in the gutter. This was supposed to be their shining moment, and instead it's a full-blown catastrophe that no one in the Continental Congress wants to talk about. If there's one thing the Americans learned here, it's this: maybe next time, pick a commander who can actually make decisions.